The Russell Historical Society presents The Doctors of the Village of Russell. Russell Village has a proud history of family doctors. Early records showed there were 5 doctors in the 27 years between 1861 and 1888. Dr. Joseph Bass was the first, followed by Dr. George Dickinson, Dr. James Stewart, Dr. Henry Kilbourne, and Dr. William Laux. Dr. Laux sold his practice to Dr. MacDougall after 15 years of service. The longest serving doctors were Dr. Dugald MacDougall on the left, who served for 50 years, from 1888 to 1938, and Dr. Frank Kinnaird on the right, who served for 40 years, between 1938 and 1980. The doctor's house at 1153 Concession Street was built by James Keyes around 1870. Mr. Keyes was a prominent figure in the early history of Russell. Both Dr. MacDougall and Dr. Kinnaird lived in this house and had their offices there. Set up in 1989 in the basement of the Church Museum, the doctor's display contains artifacts from both Dr. Kinnaird and Dr. MacDougall and their office furniture. When Dr. MacDougall started in Russell, it was estimated that 1/3 of his patients who contracted diphtheria died. He vaccinated patients with antitoxins. At first, families were reluctant to take this new medicine, but when they saw how effective it was, they quickly developed a trust in their new doctor. Traveling was difficult in those days. Traveling by horseback, buggy, and cutter with makeshift bridges unsafe to cross, mud up to the axles of the buggy, long cold winters with snow-drifted roads made it almost impossible. It was said that during the Spanish flu epidemic, Dr. MacDougall went without rest for 21 days, sleeping in the buggy as his driver Wallace Campbell drove him from farm to farm. He restricted public gatherings, closed schools and churches, and he insisted that every infected house be quarantined. Not one of his patients died. Dr. MacDougall estimated that during his 50-year practice he delivered 7,000 babies. In honor of his retirement in 1938 at the age of 75, a local park was dedicated to him. The village presented him with a gold-handled cane and built a cedar bridge in the park. In 1940, the Russell Agricultural Society erected a stone cairn with a bronze plaque in his honor. Dr. MacDougall met Dr. Kinnaird at the Ottawa Civic Hospital and convinced him to take over his practice in Russell. Except for 2 years during World War II, in which Dr. Kinnaird served overseas at the 16th General Hospital in Horsley, UK, he continued to serve the people of Russell and area with the same devotion as his predecessor until his retirement in 1980. During his war absence, Dr. Morrow and Dr. Byers of Medcalf looked after his Russell patients. Dr. Kinnaird was the center of any sporting activity in which the young people of the area took part. He even spent some of his summer vacations as a physician for the hockey school. One of the boys he took under his care was Larry Robinson of Marvelville, who made it all the way to the NHL with the Montreal Canadiens. At his retirement in 1980, the Russell Arena was named the Dr. Kinnaird Community Center, and Larry Robinson was present for this special dedication. The same year he retired, he passed on his practice to a local farm boy, Dr. Jerry Haymans, who had just graduated from medical school. In 1980, Dr. Haymans opened his practice in his house at 3 Birch Court. He became only the 3rd village doctor in the previous 100 years. In 1984, he opened the Russell Medical Center on Craig Street with druggist Brian Mayer and was soon joined by other doctors. In our display, we have 2 well-worn doctor's bags. Dr. MacDougall's is on the left and Dr. Kinnaird's is on the right. This photo displays a large alcohol burner for sterilizing equipment and a small burner for use when conducting home visits. The next image is a glass urine specimen bottle. The final photo shows several glass medicine bottles. Our first village druggists were also our doctors, who prescribed and dispensed the necessary drugs from their office. They were listed as both physicians and druggists in directories in the late 1880s. If your child had an ear infection and you needed medication, you would phone the doctor and you could come and pick it up on the windowsill in the porch at the doctor's house, any hour of the day or night. You could pay for it at your next appointment. The first village drugstore was opened by J.C. Ham around 1920. Some older residents still remember Dr. MacDougall's little office in the northeast corner of the doctor's house, heated by a Woodland Jewel wood stove, the hundreds of bottles of different medicines, and above all, the smell of French tobacco that seemed to permeate the whole building. In our display, we have a portrait of Dr. MacDougall with his gold cane, painted by local artist Greg Rokosh. It was for the first production of Old Mac, written by local playwright Sandra McNeil in the early 1990s. The play relives some of the memorable events from the career of Dr. MacDougall. The gold-handled cane donated by his daughter Dorothy is shown on the right. The painting and play are excellent examples of how the arts can be used to enrich the cultural and historical roots of our community. We hope this whets your interest in visiting our museum, and we look forward to seeing you here in the future.